Hello, guys. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon from everywhere you are. I hope you are doing well. I'm Mohsen from Microsoft Zero to Hero. Today we are here with a great session. And before to kick off the main session, I have a great news and good news for you. And in July, we have a series of the session specific in .NET and C# technology. Let's a short video share with you. After that, we jump to main session. Let's see. Cool, nice. So stay tuned in our channel to reserve your seat and let's share some information about the today's session. Today we have a Christian is here. He wants to talk about the Power Query specific on the data. Actually, the topic is very interesting. Christian is a Microsoft MVP and MCT also. And as you know, we are part of Microsoft Learn Community. Microsoft Learn Community is a central hub about the learning content based off your career, based off your certificate. You can choose your learning path and ask your question about a lot of Learn experts. And this is our June calendar, Microsoft Zero to Hero. All of previous session hosted on our YouTube channel and reserve your seat for future session. This is the last slide about our code of conduct. Be aware of other, be friendly and passionate, be welcoming and respectful, be open to all question, viewpoint, be understanding of difference, and be kind and considerate to other in the chat, in the question. And now is the time to add the Christian on the stage. Hello, Christian. How are you?
Hello. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you again, and thank you for being here for great session. As you know, the data is very interesting, and you are very expert in the Power Query and work with the data.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you, and yeah, the time you can start. Let me add your presentation to the stage. We have your screen. You can start.
Yeah,
Guys,
it
just for
will.
information, sorry, Christian, you can ask your question in the comment. We will share with Christian that at the end of the session. Christian, answer your question.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Thanks
Yeah.
again. And hello, everyone. And thank you all for joining my session. As I said, thanks for having me. I'm really glad to be here. It's my first time speaking at the reactor and in this format. So hopefully my session will be useful for all of you, regardless of the level where you are on your Power Query journey. My session today is an introduction, an overview to the Power Query errors, regardless if you're talking about Excel or Power BI. They are all treated the same. A few words about me, and then let's move to the session. My name is Cristian Angyal, and I'm a project manager turned into a data guy since a few years now after discovering Power Pivot, Power Query, and Power BI back in 2014. My background is electrical engineering, and I've worked for the last 20 plus years in engineering, quality, project management, and now in IT in consulting. I'm based in Timișoara, Romania, and for the last 10 plus years, I've worked a lot with all kinds of data, learning more and more and checking my knowledge by sitting in a few Microsoft certification exams. Since 2021, I'm running the Romania Power BI Modern Excel user group, and since 2022, I was recognized as a Microsoft MVP for Excel and Power BI. The plan for today is to give you a clear and structured introduction on what Power Query errors are. And for this, we'll do a very short intro to Power Query, showing what type of errors can we find, and then how to handle them, so we can build an audit table usable by the report viewers, Power BI report viewers, to improve the quality of the data they are using. And then in the end, I'll share my best practice in working with different queries. So, what is Power Query? As a general overview, Power Query is a data transformation and preparation engine from Microsoft, an ETL tool, and ETL stands for extract, transform, and load. E stands for extracting and connecting to hundreds of data sources. T is for allowing transformations of hundreds of transformations using functions and so on. And then L stands for the load, by loading the data into the data model, either in Excel Power Pivot data model or in Power BI. But the best thing about Power Query is the fact that it offers the one button click refresh. I'm an efficient guy because I don't like to say I'm lazy. So I'm being efficient. And this is my favorite button in Power Query, the refresh button. And as my friend Win Hopkins said, at a certain point, Power Query is the world's greatest data washing machine. I love this quote, and I always include it whenever I talk about Power Query. A few words about how Power Query works. In Power Query, each expression must produce a value. Ideally, this is the expected value, and a value can be anything from a simple scalar like text, date, number, or Boolean, to records, list, functions, or binaries, structured data types. However, there is an alternative. An expression can raise an error, which is a special way of indicating that the expression could not produce a value. Today, we will focus on this, demystifying a bit what errors really are, what are the main types, and how can we address them. So, in general, as a big picture, any error in Power Query has three components. Before moving to the types of errors, we need to understand how to read it. These three components are like this: the error reason, the first section before the column in an actual error. In the example above, the error reason is an unknown error because I defined it. This is why it's like this. Then we have the error message. This is the section directly after the column. In the example above, the error is please check the details field for additional info. And then we have error details. This is the section directly after details string. And this is on the bottom. Technically, any of these three components is optional, but some default values are displayed for reason and message, so we can consider these two as mandatory. So, what type of errors do we have in Power Query? There are two types of error: the step-level errors, which are preventing the Power Query from loading, and you have some examples here, both from Power BI and Excel. And then we have the cell-level errors, value errors, which does not prevent the query from loading, but Power Query tend to ignore cell-level errors, and it's loading blanks instead. So you will see whenever you have an error in Power Query, value error, Power Query will ignore it and just load a blank there. Sometimes it can provide a lot of issues if you are thinking about the final result. So let's go quickly on the two types of errors The step level errors, these are the errors that won't let you go further or wouldn't refresh the data in the table or the data model. One really have to take care of them in order to continue. Most common types of step level errors are data source errors, well, it cannot find the source, errors in query steps. Usually it's bad typing or incomplete syntax or so on. Errors in precedent queries. If you had errors before, it will not allow you to load the data. Formula firewall errors, which are not very often but really annoying. Usually, this type of errors are appearing when you are combining different data sources. So unless you know your data really good, you can have this kind of errors too. And there are some other type of errors, but we won't go into details on these ones because we care about the cell level errors, and the audit table that we are building today will be on this type of errors. Usually, as I said, the cell level errors or the value errors does not prevent query from loading. And the most common types are data type conversion errors or operation errors. Data type conversion errors, most often found in the real world, and especially in files with data coming from Excel, CSVs, text files, and so on. And these are appearing much less frequently in data sources if your data is in data sources like SQL, Oracle, or any other data source where the data types are already set. These will be the ones that we will be focusing with the audit table. Because in the end, we will build an audit table, but until then, we need to understand how everything works. If we're not touching the cell level errors, Power Query will show them to us separately, either in Excel or Power BI. And as I said, it's replacing them in the final table with blanks. The second type, the operation errors, it's think about trying to combine or do mathematical operations between a date and a number. Of course, it will not work. This type of error will occur. Okay, now that we know the two types of errors that we can find, how can we deal with errors? As general guidance, there are several ways to dealing with errors, like ignore them, basically, and okay, if it's a cell level error, it will just load the blank. We can remove the errors. We can replace the errors either with nulls or with something else. We can keep the errors, and this is what we will leverage today. Or we can leverage them with special keywords in Power Query, like try otherwise, try catch, or simple try. Well, now that we have a basic understanding, let's go to the demo part. Well, for the demo, let me, I will just move everything on my other screen. I'm starting from an Excel file. Should be visible now. Well, in this Excel file, I have a table here. I have two tables, and actually, I'll show you during the session today. So I have a table with sample errors, lots of errors. They are purposely built like this, so we can go through each of them. Besides this, I have another table with more realistic data. It's a table with sample sales data with columns like date, product name, quantity, and unit price, which is much more close to the real world. So now let me show you what I did. So I'm opening Power BI file, and in this file, I will go to the Power Query section, And let me show you what I did. Here, if I'm pressing Ctrl Shift Plus, I'm zooming in a bit. So I'm connecting directly to that Excel file and getting all the data, all the sheets and the tables there. But what I'm interested are these two tables, the error samples and the sales. During the demo, I did lots of reference to this query to start it from here and move further. So first, let me show you some step-level errors in action. This is a first sample of a step-level error, and the reason and the details are pretty clear. Data source not found, and on the message we have files or folder, could not find the file in the location where it was supposed to be. Of course, this is a step-level error. The Power Query will not move further this point, and this is it. In this situation, we go on settings, go browse, modify, put the right location, and everything will work. Well, I have another one here, an expression error. For this one, the reason is an expression error and the message, the name source wasn't recognized. Well, this is an expression error because I made a purposefully mistake in the code. I referenced the previous step with a mistake here. So if you see here, the source has an underscore. So Power Query does not recognize this step. It will not let you move further. Then we have the syntax error with here I forgot by intentionally a parenthesis, and this is the type of error that is raised by Power Query. The reason is an expression error and the message is token. I think I did something here. Okay, yeah. Token parenthesis. So sometimes the error message helps in most of the cases. I have another error here. I have an expression error. The column date of the table was not found. This is happening whenever we are loading a query. So here I'm just referencing this query. I'm navigating to, let me delete the steps so I can show you. I'm navigating the sales table. And as you can see, Power Query created for me a change type step. Well, if I'm doing anything before this step, so after navigation, I go and modify this column name from date to dates, let's say. Okay, I'm inserting a step. Whenever I go to the change type step, this will raise an error because the column date, which was hard-coded here in the code, is not there anymore, and this is why we get an error. Okay, so as a summary, I'm doing the summary again with by raising errors on purpose. So I created these errors. We can define our own errors, and this is how I'm doing the summary here. What to remember about step-level errors? Always check the data source paths. Usually, it's pretty clear whenever we have a data source path in the message. Always check the formula spelling. Whenever you are typing the functions manually and you're not pressing the tab key to use IntelliSense, we might do mistakes, and formula will return a step-level error. Use the dependency view whenever you have queries that are coming from different queries, from referenced queries. So to get to the query dependency view, you just go here on the view tab and query dependencies, and you can open it and trace everything backwards. Whenever you have a long query with many steps, always try to debug it from the end, because you'll find the step where that error happened. And if you can avoid formula firewall errors by either know your data very well and ignore the privacy and possibly speed up the query, or use an intermediate level query, not to reference directly the initial query, and then you can avoid the firewall. Whenever you need, go to the advanced editor and open it. You can modify your data here, and you can even define your own errors inside the formula firewall, inside the advanced editor. And if you can, format M-code for easier debug. Usually, Power Query code is written without formatting, but there are tools like the site Power Query Editor, powerqueryformatter.com, who can let you format the code. It's easier to debug it afterwards. Okay, now that we've seen the step level errors, let's go to the cell level errors. And let me show you what I did here. I see no question in the chat, so we can move on, right? Okay. So for cell level errors, I'm again referencing this initial query. Here in the source tab, I'm navigating to the error sample table. And from here, Power Query already detects an error here. It's coming directly from the Excel file. So for any error, any structured view in or any structured data type in Power Query, if you click on the white space near the structure, like this one here, here in the bottom, we can see a preview of what's inside there. And here I see that I have an invalid value of NA. But Power Query is changing the type by default. And this is something that at the beginning, you're pretty happy with it. But as you progress in knowing Power Query, this is something that can potentially hurt you and can be turned off. And let me show you how it's done. So let me close and apply. So if you go here in File, Options and Settings, Options, here on the type detection, the default is always detect column types and headers for unstructured sources. In my way of working, I always have never detect column types and headers for unstructured sources, because Power Query tends to add that change step type on many options, and it's not necessarily the best thing, because every time, let me close everything again and go back to the one that we were. Okay, and Control-Shift+ to zoom in. So this step, every time Power Query is adding a change type step, everything that it's read here, it's actually column names which are hard-coded. Whenever you are modifying it, it can potentially cause problems. So if you can, take them off. So what I did here in my query, just to demonstrate how different queries are showing, I'm just duplicating the mixed data type, and I'm duplicating it so we can see the initial part. And this one, I'm changing the type. So I'm selecting it and transforming to whole number. So if you see here, I'm changing the type to whole number. So whenever I'm doing this, I get the values only for the values that are actually numbers. Everything else returns an error, and the errors are data format error. We couldn't convert to number. And it's more or less the same for all of them, but only the details are different, and the details are basically the values from the cells that it was supposed to be replaced. Then I'm duplicating again the column, and I'm changing the type to date. Of course, only these two, so this one, this value, and this value will be converted to date. Everything else is an error, and again, we have a data format error. We couldn't parse the input provided as date value. I'm duplicating it again, and now I'm changing the type to Boolean. So from here, we can change the type either from this small corner, the top left corner of column, or from the menu on data type. So on this one, I did modify the type to Boolean, and only the true and the false were actually converted. Everything else is returning an error. And then I wanted to show, this is why I had this table with so many type of errors. I'm doing an operation error. And what I did here, so I added an additional column. And here, if you're checking, I'm trying to add the values from the invalid dates, the first column, and the mixed data type. And of course, this will return an error for everything. And here we have an error because the data types of invalid dates and mixed data types are different. So I have date here and text here. So every time we are trying to add types or do any math operation on two different types of errors, we will on two different types of columns, we will get an error. So as a summary for this, again, I did it with by defining an error. To do the summary, what to remember about the cell level errors, as I said, usually are two types: the data type conversion, regardless of the data type that we are trying to modify, and operation errors. And as I said in the slides, we have to deal with them according to the needs. So either ignore them, remove them, replace them, keep them, or leverage them with try otherwise. As I showed you, if you can, my recommendation is to disable automatic detect data type from the options, and having this kind of errors can potentially help us in building an audit table for different tables or different reports, and I'll show you how we can do it. Now that we know we've seen the two types of errors, let's go and actually see what are the errors. Well, what is an error? Of course, I'm trying to present everything in this report as Power Query. So let me zoom in a bit. And I'm presenting everything as defined errors. So let me go from the beginning. Let's understand what Power Query error really is. So errors in Power Query are actually records. So they are records, and we can define them. Everything that is here are defined errors, so I can explain in it what I want to say. So we can define our own errors as records, and check this out. We have a special keyword error, and I'm starting a record with open bracket and close it with a close bracket. And I can define the reason, the message, and the details exactly as I showed you on the slides. So these are the three main components. You will see these are not the only three. Since 2022, Power Query has some two additional fields which are not necessarily mandatory, but they can be used. So let's go to E3. We can also define our own errors using dedicated functions. So here I have a keyword error, but we can define it with a function, error.record. And if I hover over it, Power Query IntelliSense was supposed to work. It's not working, but in this error.record, we can define the error reason and see this is the reason at the beginning before the colon. We can define the message and we can define the details. You will see there are situations where defining our own errors can be really helpful. We can customize our error fields. So here we can modify it as we want. In the error reason, Houston, we have a problem. We can define it as we want. And for the message, ignition failed, and details, we can put any details, and there are situations where leveraging errors is really helpful. But the error.record function cannot work without arguments. So here I just paste it with error.record and I get an expression, another error. So this is an actual error because I haven't used the function correctly. So here I was supposed to add at least one argument for error.record and I don't have it. So error.record has a mandatory, the reason is mandatory when using this function. So instead of records, this one. Error also accepts a string resulting error with that will have the message. So here, as you can see, I'm defining the error using the error key, but I'm just adding a string and it's already accepting it. So we get an expression error by default, and the message is the one that we are putting it as a string. And in order to see it better how it's working, here I have defined a sample error. So it's an unknown error. Please check the details field for additional info. And on details, an error occurred while displaying the previous error. So I was trying to play a bit with it. And I'm also defining a value. And this is not an error. This is a scalar value in the same query. In order to let me delete this so you can see. I'm using the try keyword and I'm trying this step. So I try to evaluate this step. Whenever I'm trying to evaluate this step, I get a record, an error as a record, which has two fields. One is it has an error, which is true, and then a second record with the actual error message. So in order not to have this, so whenever we want to evaluate a value, and if it's an error, we want to use a different value. We can use a different keyword otherwise, and so if this step evaluates to an error, I want to return this step, a value. So let me modify otherwise, a value. And then we get exactly what we wanted. So this one returned an error, and whenever this one returned an error, I'm returning a different value. You will see this technique can be used even for step level errors. Whenever an entire step is failing, we can define a different step, a different table to replace it in order not to break the data model. So now that we have a better understanding on what errors are and how we can define them, we also have, before moving forward, I want to show you the other two additional fields that you haven't seen until now. Here, I'm defining a structured error with a reason, a message format, and message parameters. These are the two additional parameters that I told you appeared in 2022. And here I have a list of things, a list of values inside the format and the parameters. And if I'm trying to evaluate this error, I get the message that, yes, indeed, it has an error. And if I'm checking the record that's inside the record of the error, I'm getting all the details inside it, including message format, message parameter, and lately there are some error codes already standardized by Microsoft. And if I want to, if I'm using projection, so from this record, I'm trying to get the first value in this message. So if I want to get John Doe out of it, I'm just using the error and the message parameter, and I'm getting the first value. This 0, because Power Query is 0 based, I'm getting the first value as John Doe. If I want to get the second value, just pressing 1, and now I have Jane Doe here. Okay, now that we know how to what are errors? What errors do we have? As I said, yes, we have an option to cater even for step-level errors. So again, I'm referencing the sample Excel files here, Excel file. I'm going to the sales table this time, so to the second table. I'm renaming the columns, and I'm getting an error here. It's exactly what I showed you on the first step-level errors. I'm getting an error because the date column was not found. The date was modified here in dates as from date to dates. Well, normally this would break the entire loads, but we can treat it even like this with an entire step. And if I go to Edit, Advanced Editor, you can see that on the last step, on Control Shift Plus, I have a last step, check for error, and I'm trying the change type step, which is this one, an entire table, returning a table. And if it's failing, I have otherwise, I'm just adding an additional table, a defined table with the same structure. And in the end, I'm returning this variable in the end. So the query will not break. And here in the table, I'm explicitly saying there was a step level error, please check it, and so on. But at least the data model will not fail. Well, in dealing with cell level errors, I'm starting again from the sample Excel files. I'm navigating to the sales table and changing types. We have several options, either to ignore the errors and load it. As I said, Power Query will load nulls whenever we had an error like this one or this one. Or we can remove the errors, and we have two types of removals. So either we can select a certain column, go to Home, remove rows, and here we have remove errors. So we can remove it either at the column level, or, and this is what I did here. So I was selecting the unit price, and I did remove errors, or we can remove it from the entire table. If we select the entire table with Control A and go to remove errors, we can remove all of them from the entire table. Here, if we go here on the top left in this small table sign, we can also remove errors from the entire table if we are checking this button. We can also replace error, just like we did with remove. We can replace them at the column, on a certain column. Let me zoom out a bit. So here, on this one, I'm replacing on quantity sold. If I get an error, I'm explicitly saying I want to replace it with a certain value. Or I can replace it with nulls on this column. So here, again, I'm selecting the column, go to replace values or replace errors. See here. And replace it with nulls or values. Or we can replace errors in the entire table. Then we have another option, which it seemed strange for me at the beginning, but I realized after a while that it's really powerful. We can keep the errors, just like we did with removing the errors. If we keep the errors on a column here on unit price, for example, what I did, let me do it again so we can add an additional step. On unit price, we can keep rows. So here on the top, we can keep the errors. Well, yes, I want to insert an additional step. We can keep the errors either on a column, or we can keep it for the entire table, just like I showed you with replacing errors. Keeping the errors from the entire table is what we will be using for the audit table. We have some additional usage on using or leveraging the errors with try otherwise. So on this query, I'm just referencing again. Yeah, I lost my mouse. Okay. Well, it seems that I lost my mouse. No worries. We can go like this. Hopefully it will appear in the end. So here I'm changing the type. I'm removing the errors on the product name, removing the errors on quantity. So here with 10, if you go in the here on top in the formula bar, and then we can clean up everything with using try the unit price, otherwise replacing with 15. And if we go inside the error, let me here, I'm adding an additional column. If we look inside the record by using try the unit price, we see that we had an error on this one. So has error is true. And if we expand the I don't see my mouse. One moment, I will just stop it and start it again. Hopefully this time it will work. Well, it's not working like this. Maybe we can fix it like this. So if we are expanding everything, we can see that yeah, DemoGods is not helping me today. It doesn't matter much because I did show you what I wanted to show you here. Inside that specific error, we have a record with a reason, data format error, message, invalid self value, details, null, and so on. So as I said, by leveraging the try keyword, we can get the details of what's behind it. Now, I see that we don't have much time, so I want to switch to the other demo, how to actually build the audit table. But hopefully I can make my mouse work, because otherwise it will be a problem. So as far as I can see on the stream, it's working, but so it's visible, but not on my screen. Mosen, can I stop sharing and try to reshare again? Maybe this will help.
For sure, that's okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, I cannot do it. So I will try to work with my tablet directly. Hopefully, this will work. And use the trackpad. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Well, not even this one is working. I cannot see it on my screen. Well, I'm sorry for the technical difficulties.
No, that's okay.
Pretty difficult to work without the mouse. Not even on this one, I cannot see it. So I don't know what's happening. I will just stop my screen and start it again. Maybe it was my screen.
Yeah, we have your screen.
Well, it's always nice to have this kind of situations when you are presenting, right?
Yeah, I know. I know.
So stop my mouse, start it again. No, I cannot see it. Still, I cannot see it. So it will be difficult, but I see that on the recording it's visible. On
Yeah,
the
actually, we see your mouse on
yeah,
share
only I
screen, but
cannot see it. So let me try to work like this. I will just press from time to time the control to find it, and we'll go like this. So this is this is the wrong one. This is the finished one. So let me put the starting file, this one. So I have a Power BI file here. And if I'm going to the transform data, I'm connecting again to the same Excel file. So besides those two tables in the Excel file, I have a separate sheet, and let me try to find it. I have a separate sheet here with the Contoso simplified dataset with a calendar, customers, products, and sales table. And I'm trying to load them with Power Query to build a model. So I'm doing 4 different intermediate. So I'm connecting to the file for once, and then I'm referencing this query with staging intermediate queries, not loading them to the data model. And this is the way I usually work, because I have access and I'm doing all my transformations in this intermediate queries. And then out of this, I'm referencing them for the final tables, and I'm changing the data types, and I'm keeping only the columns, the product, customer, calendar, and sales. So let me show you here on view, the query dependencies, how this looks in terms of query dependencies. So I'm only having a single raw data connection. Then I'm having a staging layer not loaded, and then the final data model. The queries to load inside the data model. I'm trying to close this dependency view. Okay. So let's go to home and try to load this data inside Power BI. So close and apply, and click refresh. I have to click refresh because I did some tests before. So here we have a problem. We see that 3 of the queries contain errors, and in products, customers, and sales, we had cell level errors, and Power Query loaded blanks for them. But it also gave us the possibility to view the errors. So if I go to view the errors, Power Query created for me a group with 3 queries. This one's on the bottom here: errors in products, errors in customers, and errors in sales, keeping, well, actually using the keep errors button that I showed you, keeping the errors, only those errors that, so actually showing the rows that are containing errors. Well, these are not loaded into the data model, and I will just delete the group completely because we can build our own um, we can fix or treat the errors from the beginning. So if I go to products, the final tables that are loaded, I'm just going as the final step of the query, just to make sure that I'm not having any errors. I go and remove all the errors from here. I'm adding a step, removing the errors. I'm doing the same with customers. So removing the errors. I still don't see my mouse, but I see that it's working in the end like this. So I'm removing the errors for this table too, and also for the sales one, because, okay, and now that we are sure we are not loading errors or we are not loading blanks, we have to treat them and create the audit, or make sure we get the errors from the products, let's say. So I'm going to the staging products, the intermediate query that I had. I right click and reference it. And let's rename it staging products errors. And in order to do it, and right click and make sure this will not be loaded, because we will do it for several tables. So first step here, if we don't have an ID, here we would have an ID, the product ID. But in general, if you want to make sure you have a unique ID, or if you don't have a unique ID in a certain table, you can create one by going to add column, add index column from 0 or from 1. It doesn't matter much. We can even modify it here in the formula bar. I'm starting the index from I'm trying to catch the bar here, like this. Okay, so I'm creating an index, a unique ID for the rows. Second step here would be to go and from this button here, go and keep the errors. So I'm keeping the errors from the entire table. Whenever I have all the errors on all the columns on in this table, I just go on my index column, the one that I just created, if I can find it, yeah, like this. Right click and go with unpivot other columns. So I'm unpivoting everything, keeping the index, the ID of the record as it was, and then the columns became the attribute column, and everything that was as values is becoming the value column. Here, I'm just going and select the value column and keep the errors. Again, I lost my mouse. Well, it's here. So I right click, not here. I can go here. It's easier like this, and keep the errors. And now we have all the errors. Well, what can we do with them? Well, we can add a column. Go here with add column, custom column, and use what we've learned, here, just try to evaluate this value column that is having the errors. And if we press OK, we get a record. Inside the record, as I showed you earlier, we have additional, I lost my mouse again. Here we have, if you check the bottom here, we have an evaluation, has error true, and the actual error that's behind it. So from here, we just expand. I have to find the exact spot here in the middle, but it's not working. If we expand the record, maybe I should go with I'm trying to watch the StreamYard. Maybe I can find the exact spot. Okay, I'm not even seeing on this one. So I would have to expand it here, but my mouse is not helping me. Well, in the end, I will try to find it. So whenever we are expanding this record, we get the has error column with true for all of them and the actual error. Hopefully, I can show it the final version by going with Alt Tab, not this one. Again, I don't see my mouse, and it's really, really annoying. Audit table, this one is the finished one. I have bigger buttons here, and this is what I did here. And we were here after keeping the errors. I will just show you the final version. So I added the custom column and then expanded on this one. I'm expanding the column and keeping only the error column, and then I'm expanding the error on this one, and I'm getting all the details there. And then I'm removing the actual error column so we can get the column, the error reason, the error message, and the error detail, and so on. If we are doing it for every table, so every table that had errors, like here, so I already prepared it here. I have all the errors inside the products table. I have all the errors in the next one. In the sales table, hopefully I can, it's not working. Well, I lost it completely. I lost the mouse. Well, you understand the drill. I'm doing the same thing for every table that I saw that there are errors, and then I'm appending them together in an audit table, and which is the last one in the slide here. This one, it's not working at all. My mouse is not working at all now. Hopefully I can fix it through keys. So if I'm going back, no, not this one. If I go and refresh my file, this will not return errors, because for the data model tables, I just removed everything. And loading the intermediate tables with errors, the audit table, I just created an additional table, this one, audit. Hopefully now it will work. Yeah. And I can show it to the end user. These are the errors that you have to fix. These are the tables that the errors occurred. These are the IDs of the records inside that specific source. Please go and fix it. And we can even build a separate page with errors. I know exactly that I have 31 errors here, 4 errors in the customers table, 7 in the products table, like this one, and 20 in the sales table. So that the end user can go in the source table, if it's a type of file like this one, fix it, refresh the file, and have all the data back. Well, let's go back to the slides now. And I don't need the I don't need the mouse anymore for the slides. And do a summary. Here it should work. Yeah, like this. It's not even this one. It's not working. Nice. I love it when it's happening. Luckily for me, I had the prepared file, so I can show you how to build the audit table in the end.
Yeah, that situation is very bad, you know.
Yeah, I
Like,
don't know what's happening. Not even the laptop, it's recognizing my clicks.
mm,
So this one, okay. Which is which? Let me go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, F5 again. Yeah, it's going, but I will go quickly on these ones and using only the space. Okay. Dealing with errors, and yeah, this is the slide where we were. So, as a summary, we've seen a short overview on Power Query. We've seen error types in Power Query. We've seen how to deal with errors, and I've shown you how to define your own errors, even presenting the errors like this. And finally, I tried to create the audit table. Luckily for me, I had it already created, but hopefully you got the message, or you understood how I build it, giving it to the end users to leverage it and fix the errors there. There are two users or developer types. Those who wait for the errors to happen, either at the beginning of their Power Query journey, or they really don't care. And those who plan for errors, and I'm suspecting that all of you that are here are falling into this category. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening me now, right? Well, with the basic walkthrough we've done today, I hope all of you to be part of this second category. My best practice: learn from community and experience, plan for errors, don't wait for them to happen, avoid certain transformations until you absolutely have to do them, like moving or reordering columns, removing or renaming columns, sorting unnecessarily, or detecting the data types. For step level errors, start debugging from the end, use the dependency view and see which query depends on another one. Use parameters for data sources where possible, so you can replace them in a single place and then reuse them afterwards. Use the 3-layer pulse methodology to avoid formula firewall. The methodology I've shown you, that I'm connecting to a single data source, I'm loading an intermediate layer. So the second layer is the staging layer, which is not loaded. And then the data model layer are the tables only with the columns that are supposed to be loaded there. And don't remove columns, but select columns to keep. I would have shown you in Power Query, but there are two different things. The end result is the same. The number of column decreases, but it's one thing to remove a column where you are hard coding it into the M language in the advanced editor, or selecting columns to keep. By selecting columns to keep, you will not get the step level errors afterward. For cell level errors, leverage the errors when appropriate, treat errors programmatically if possible with custom columns with try otherwise, disable auto detect data type and use it on purpose. So set the data types just before loading the data to the data model, which is exactly what the next bullet point is saying. The final step of any query that loads to data model is setting the data types, and plan for errors and use audit tables whenever you have data sources that can have errors inside. Here are some additional resources, and I recommend you take a screenshot and check all the links that I gave you here. Thank you very much, and hopefully you've learned something new today.
Yeah, great session. Thank you again. Guys, if you have any question, you can ask your question on the comment. There is one question here. Let me share with you on the screen.
I'm trying to find the right screen, and without the mouse, it's really complicated. So
Yeah,
I will stop sharing first, if I can.
okay,
Yeah, and hopefully this is the one. Yeah, found it finally.
great, great.
Well,
Actually this is a one experience in how to
yeah, for
continue
which
without
use
mouse.
case do you recommend when writing your own custom errors message inside Power Query? Well, David, there are if you're coming to Romania Power BI user group, to any of the sessions, we are sitting afterwards for chit chat and after the sessions, and I can show you some additional use cases. But for example, having lists with the message and parameters, you might want to replace, depending on the error, you might want to replace some value, but not all the values. And you can leverage you can write your own error codes to change data only when you want to change it. So you don't have to rely on Power Query, or you can skip many additional steps going inside the query and checking everything if you leverage it and write your own custom errors.
Great. The last comment is a thank you, Christian, for great session.
Well,
And guys, in future, if you have any question, you can ask Christian and connect on the LinkedIn, ask your
yeah,
question.
feel free to
Uh,
connect on LinkedIn.
yeah, and the last question, Christian.
Uh, we are conducting both English and Romanian sessions at Romania Power BI user group. We're having 2 sessions per month, one in English, one in Romanian, but we are using Teams Premium, which is allowing live captions, translations, so it doesn't matter what language do we use.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Christian, for great session. I
Well,
hope
thank you,
your
and sorry for the hiccup at the end with my mouse.
no worry. That's okay. Sometimes these situations happen for all of the experts. It's normal, you know.
Yeah, well,
That's
I'm
yeah,
glad I had the file finished, because otherwise it would have been
yeah.
exactly at the audit table would have had
Yeah,
problems.
yeah, actually, I think me and other guys have received the goal and concept of the presentation, and in the future we can practice or exercise
Yeah.
myself or others say. Thank you, guys. Thank you again. Have a great day. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thanks again for having me. Have a nice weekend, everyone.
You too. Bye bye.